What's going on, guys? Here with another knife overview. This time we're looking at the Benchmade Mini Adamas. Let's do it. So there has been a lot of hype in the past year or so since this guy's release, and I finally got one, and suffice to say, I have not been disappointed. It has lived up, in my opinion, to absolutely the reputation that supersedes it. And it had a high reputation. I had high expectations for it, and this is one that has absolutely not disappointed. So let's jump into this. What makes this knife so great? Why should you get it, and just kind of what's the whole point? Well, first of all, I just want to talk about CPM crewwear. So I believe this is the first knife that Benchmade has put crewwear on. Someone tell me if I'm wrong. This is just in my experience. First knife that Benchmade has put crewwear on, and this is the mini version. I don't have the full size, which is much bigger. So crewwear, if you guys have been watching the channel for a while, is one of my favorite steels, if not my #1 favorite steel. Because of that really high toughness, without sacrificing too much on the edge retention. So, you know, somewhere just below S30V on the edge retention, of course, depending on the hardness, and then, you know, above M4, just below 3V on the toughness. And with that 7% chromium, it's coming in, you know, as a sort of half stainless steel. So it's not fully stainless. I wouldn't get this guy extremely wet or like in the ocean, stuff like that, but it's going to handle a little bit more than some of your other tool steels, especially this guy with that nice gray textured Cerakote, which they so graciously put on there. Besides just the look, it is very functional as well. So very happy that they put crewwear on this knife, especially as a hard use sort of a, you know, heavy duty knife. I think that is the perfect steel choice for that. Now that rounds out my collection a little bit, because I have my Spyderco here in crewwear. Very different knives. This guy, obviously a very nice slicing knife, comes down to a very thin edge, compared to the Mini Adamas is a little bit of a thicker blade. Doesn't quite have such a thin slicey blade, but excellent steels nonetheless. I believe some testing data has shown these guys to have a hardness around 64.8, in the high 64 range, and Benchmade has published that they harden these to between 63 and 65, which I think is absolutely excellent. I have not yet seen any testing to confirm that, but if that's true, I think that's a great place for this steel to be, a little bit on the harder end. Still going to be really tough, but just have a little bit better edge retention. So super cool. Now let's get into this knife more as a whole. So you've already seen me flick this a bunch of times, probably annoyingly, but the action is absolutely incredible. And I didn't do much to this. It came largely like this, straight out of the box. So I can just barely flick that with my thumb outward, and that thick, heavy blade really helps to push the, you know, the weight towards the tip helps to push the blade open. Also, you get a really good angle on this thumb stud, and since it's relatively far away from the pivot, you actually get a good amount of torque on that thumb stud. So you don't have to actually flick it super hard, because it is a slightly bigger knife, bigger thumb stud, and then heavier blade. So action is absolutely great, super smooth, dead center. Everything about this knife came absolutely perfect, QC wise. The edge was phenomenal. It's extremely sharp, and I've already used this guy for some harder than normal tasks. I wish I would have filmed it, but I was just in the moment and forgot. And that edge is still extremely sharp, so you know, definitely looking forward to getting this guy to work a little bit more than I already have. In terms of the ergos, it's phenomenal. It's off the charts, honestly, especially for a kind of a chunky-ish knife. You can see it's definitely not thin. I'll do some comparisons in a minute. It's nice and rounded. It's got a bit of a radius to it. The biggest thing for me is the jimping, and they put the jimping in such smart places. So obviously, on the back of the blade here and the thumb ramp, perfect. And it's just coarse enough to not like hurt your hand, but still be really grippy. They also put jimping right on the forefinger, so that's great. They also put jimping on the pinky, which I have not seen a lot of, and it actually surprisingly helps. Helps you get a better grip there, good grip there on the bottom. A little bit of jimping here on the back, on the bottom, to kind of help it sit in your hand. I don't know how useful that exactly is, but really it's these 3 positions that put it over the edge for me. And my particular hand fits perfectly within that space. If your hand doesn't fit perfectly in that space, I could see it being not as comfortable, but I think there's a little bit of a wiggle room. So like if I really scrunch it up, there's still like a good 1/2 inch there. So you've got some room on both ends if your hand is a little bigger or smaller. So that's really cool. In terms of the weight, it's a little heavy. I think it's just over 4 ounces, and the blade is about 3.3 inches, so it's a little heavier in terms of that ratio, but it's not terrible. You know, they obviously, you got those big holes, which is kind of the signature Adamas look, but it also reduces the weight from those kind of thick steel liners. So that's, you know, that's a plus. I've carried it in athletic shorts, which I wouldn't exactly recommend consistently, but it's doable. And if you have any kind of pants on, I'd say you're going to be absolutely fine. I even wore it with like a sweatpants sort of thing, and it was totally fine. I didn't even notice. So it's definitely carryable. The clip is pretty nice. I like this Benchmade deep carry clip. I will say the clip came a little loose, and the retention isn't the best in the world. So even still, I took it off and kind of bent it a little bit to help it sit a little bit tighter. So that could be a little better, but I could probably do a better job with that myself. So very comfortable to carry, very comfortable to hold, very comfortable to use, either in reverse grip. That clip sits really nicely on the middle finger. Standard grip. You can kind of choke up a little bit, get your thumb, you know, in front of this little thumb ramp, and gives you a little bit of a finer control. So that works too. I kind of like the thumb stud shape. It's pretty comfortable. It doesn't really hurt my hand much. I already talked about the Cerakote, but I really love the way that looks. Yeah, this review has been kind of all over the place, but I'll do a formal long-term review down the road. But I just want to cover as many things as I can here in as little time as possible. Get as much information out there. Yeah, the design is great. It stands up. It's always kind of fun. But yeah, this thing is definitely built like a tank in a small package, and it delivers. But it also, you know, I carried it to work at the lab, and it wasn't like extremely crazy to have that because, again, it is relatively small. Oh, I never did the size comparison. Jesus, okay, I'm just off my rocker today. Here's the 940. So here's an example of a knife with a very similar handle in terms of length. The blade on the 940 is about 1/4 inch longer. Obviously much slimmer. The profile is much slimmer, but the handle is very much the same. And then the bug out, it's a good example of a knife with a very similar handle and an almost identical blade. So in terms of overall length and ratios, the bug out is actually almost the exact same as the Adamas. Obviously very different use scenarios. And you can see the difference in thickness here. That becomes very apparent when you look at the two of these guys side by side, both in the blade and the handle. So you can see just how different these two knives are despite their very similar size and proportions. But that is something I like about the Adamas, is that it's not extremely huge. The mini Adamas. The full size is definitely a bigger knife. Like a big knife, you know, objectively speaking. So yeah, that's it. You guys will see this more on the channel because I intend to use it quite a bit, and it's not going anywhere. So I believe these are mostly in stock places. I think some places they're out of stock, but you can usually find them. So if you want one, there's this guy, and then there's the like desert version. So definitely check it out. Definitely worth it. It's a good price. I think this is one of the most well-priced Benchmades out there. $225, not terrible for what you're getting, including the Benchmade warranty and the whole care package that comes with it. So definitely check these out, and stay tuned for more videos. Okay, thanks for watching.